Hello, my name is Kelvin, and this is the Tech I Missed. And this is the new series I'm doing called Let's Build a Robot. So, what we're doing is we're building a robot using um, 3D printing and AVR, other things like that, motors. And yeah, so this is our first step in the build process. Right now, it's just right now I'm designing the treads and the suspension and the wheels and things like that. Um, I think I have it pretty much the way it will be, but I've got to build some prototypes first to see what it's like. Um, but with that, I'm going to run down through Blender, which is what I'm using, and some 3D printing and some things like that. So with that, let's get on to the video and on to Blender. Okay, everybody. So this is the beginning of my robot, and as you can see here, it is uh, treads, like I stated before in my first video, and we're going to go over how I did all of this stuff and what it's all going to do in this video, and we'll be testing some parts to see if they fit, and then adjusting as we go. Um, so that's that. Over here you can see these are parts that I've printed out and tested, and I'll explain to you later why some of them are like the way they are. But um, so yeah, so these now are parts that I have tested and are to the exact scale that I want, because with 3D printing, you're not going to always get the perfect matching size out of your 3D program. So we do have to do some tests before we know for sure uh, the printer is going to print them to where they will actually fit properly. And that's fine. The, for instance, this is just a piece of this, because I don't want to spend the time printing the whole thing, and I only need to test that this center hole is the right size and that this fits in it. So I've adjusted both of these to certain points, and I'll show you some of that in real life. I have the, the models printed out so you can see, and yeah, so that's that, and this is the finished side. One side, of course, we'll just reverse it for the other side. Um, let's go over some of this, and I'll show you what each part does, and then we'll go over how I made this stuff. First of all, let me click on my keyboard um, thing here so you can see the buttons I push. So, okay, so now here you can see what I'm pushing when I'm working here, and that should help you if you don't know Blender. Should help you. Okay, so let's start with the suspension. So we have our roller wheels here, and they're just basically, just a roller. Oops. Um, so here, these are just bearings. These are just scaled size bearings, and they will go here and here. So those the rollers just go on here like this. What this is, even though this looks like a solid object, this is actually a spring, and you'll see that later. But what will happen is the springs will go here, and they will be held in place by these knobs here. And in here is another bearing, and it is connected with a 3mm bolt to the other side into the wall of the robot. And yeah, so it'll screw in there. There will be, let's see if you can see it here. Right here, this is a, you can melt these. They're basically a fastener that you can melt into the plastic. So the screw will screw into this. It's metal, and then boom, it's connected. And what will happen here is, hopefully, after I print one, I'll test it out here. Excuse me. I'll test it out. But what should happen here is this will keep, um, basically this isn't going to move down because the wheel will stop it from going down. And it won't move up either because of the spring. But when it rolls over something, of course, it will be able to move up a little bit. The spring will give way. And it should give us a little, some decent suspension. So that's what that is. And these are just held on. This is just held on by screws as well. So with the bearings here, the spring here, and this holding it on, the idea is that this will just move up and down as needed. Okay, so let's go with the drivetrain sprocket. What I did here is, this is a cap to hold it in place, and this is just a bolt or a nut. It's a 3mm. And again, this will be this is the metal thing that gets inserted into the hole there that you can screw the nut into, which I will show you later. And so this big sprocket here is this. So it's the same thing as this right here. And in order to turn it, we have the motor right here. Now here is this is a replica of the motor, the first motors that I ordered, and I realized that they're probably going to be way too small to turn this with any kind of power. So I got some bigger, better motors. That's the approximate size, as close as I could get it anyway, of the motor, of the new motor. I've got this here just to, you know, just to remind me of the scale. And maybe I'll even try it. I don't know. I doubt it because I have this set up here for this motor. They're round and all that. Anyway, so this motor will turn this piece right here that's going through the middle, and that's this piece. And to keep it in place on this side, we have this cap, which will be screwed on here into the, I guess we would call this the axle. And on this side, to keep it in place, we have a separatable cover that goes out like this, and this comes out like this, so that once it's in, there's a groove here. And I can show you on the one that's already, let's go back. So these grooves, the way this sets up is so it goes in. It goes in like this. And then what it will do is it will bolt onto the flywheel right here. So that will hold that in place, as you can see here. So we've got this, basically it's not going to go anywhere. And it's bolted to this. So once this turns, the flywheel is going to turn because this will be inside there. And that's that. So, and then we've got the motor mount here. I think this is probably going to be heavy and be super weighted in the front, and I will probably have to weight the back somehow. I mean, we'll probably put most of the components in the back, but until the time comes, this will probably be way too heavy, this front part. So we'll have to see how we deal with that at another time. But so for now, that is basically all the parts. We've got the body in sections just because they're big, and it'd just be easier to print them out that way. And so they will all be bolted together with metal M3 screws like everything else. And here we have a long slotted hole for this. Um, for this, this really isn't doing anything as far as making it move, but for this big wheel back here, um, I put this in so that if we have any kind of miscalculations with our treads, we can make it shorter or longer and just make it tight, like you would with a bicycle chain. So there's that, and this stays in place with just basically this screw and these bolts and this washer right here. So that shouldn't move any either once it's in place and we get everything tightened down. And as you can see, the treads here. Now, when I first started this, I was going to use 3D printed parts for these. But when I did it, I mean, these parts are really small right here. These are like 3 millimeters. They would break in no time from 3D printed parts. So and it ended up being, this model was huge. So this is my print bed right here. And that's 220 millimeters by 220 millimeters. So it was really huge. And this right here is going to be big as it is. So what I decided to do was I just bought a bunch of steel rods that are 3 millimeters, and I'll be cutting these to size when I'm ready. So I'm going to have to cut a whole bunch of these down to size to 3 millimeters. Or I don't know how wide they are. Let me see how wide they are. So 36 millimeters. 36.5 millimeters is how wide they need to be. So, all right, so that's the gist of this. So let me show you how to set this up if you don't know Blender, how to set it up for our 3D printing, and show you a little bit of how I made these parts, at least a few of them. I don't think I'll go over everything, but I'll give you an idea of how to do it. All right, so you might be wondering why I even use Blender, and the reason is because I'm very much used to it. I like it, and there are a lot of 3D programs and a lot of CAD programs that, you know, you get you get 4 boxes here. You get one view, one view, one view, one view. I like the freedom of looking around with Blender, and it's just a really good program, and it's free, and it's it's just a good program. So, and you can make 3D models with it, and I'll show you some tricks that I use um, to make sure things are the size I want them. And sometimes it's just eyeballing, but a lot of times you can get pretty precise. So, I mean, I've made a lot of things and with Blender, and they work just fine. So one thing we're going to do here is get rid of the light in the camera. We don't need them. And so we're going to set this up here. And what we want to do to set this up for 3D modeling is we want to go to our scene here, and in our units, We want it metric. I'm going to use millimeters. For the length, we're going to go to millimeters right there, and that's fine. But you can see here that the now this cube here is 2,000 millimeters instead of 2 meters. So we want to change our unit scale as well. We're going to make it 0.001. And as you can see, now our cube is 2 millimeters by 2 millimeters by 2 millimeters. So the next thing we have to do, you can see our grid is now really huge because we got this tiny little 2 millimeter uh, thing. Our grid's still in meters. So we need to go to the overlays. Let's see which one it is here. Yeah, it's that one, right? Yeah. Go to overlays and then scale here again. We're going to put 0.001. And there we go. Now we've got our scale. And now we're in millimeters, so that's good. I'm going to press N to get out of there. And if you see, look at this here. Well, I already have these 3D print and screen keys and all that stuff set up, but well, I want to set this to be the size of my build plate. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press N, and I'm going to go to dimensions, and my build plate is 220 millimeters, so I'm just going to put 220, and then 220, and now there's our build plate. And I am going to, it's 2 millimeters high, and I want to put this at 0, so I'm just going to bring it down to -1. And now it should be, yes, perfectly level with 0, as you can see here. So now the top of our build plate is at 0. Okay, press N again, get rid of that. Okay, and as far as other things to set up, we can go to preferences here. I would recommend, let's see what we've got here. Let's look it up. We definitely want, let's see, extra. We want extra objects for sure. Add mesh, extra objects, definitely you want that. That's where we're going to get our screws and things like that. And gears. Or bolt factory, actually. You want to add that too. Bolt factory is where the screws are. I believe the gears are the extra objects. And then something else, 3D print toolbox. You want that as well. That is this over here. Press N. 3D print toolbox. This is helpful if for some reason you're getting like bad like it's the how to say this, the vertices aren't connecting properly and it's showing you that the model is bad and it won't print right. You can do things like make a manifold, which will get rid of extra, it'll try to make it watertight. That's basically what it does. So and then you can just check things like the faces and overhangs and things like that. It's good to have, and I would recommend using it. So that's that. So go back to item, and that's basically it. So what I would do with this, I already have one saved, so I'm not going to save it, but I would just save as, say, 3D print template, and then just every time I wanted to make something, I would open up this template, and then when I got the item made, I would save it as something different. That way you always have this template ready to go whenever you want. And that's that. So let's make a few things, and I'll show you what I do to make some of these parts. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do here is, I forgot to tell you, is what I would do. You don't have to, but I would do is go to the viewport display for this object, the bed, and make it wire. That way you can see through it, and it's not really anything that you pay much attention to. Um, it's just there to give a little perspective on how big something is in relation to your bed. So let's start with something like, say, the rollers. So what I do here is I just make a cylinder, and I don't recall offhand how big they were, but I'll just press N here to bring this menu up. And let's just say they are 40 by 40 millimeters. Yeah, that looks about right, maybe. And let's say they're about, I don't know, 60 wide. That's too wide. Let's go with 50. Yeah, it looks okay. It doesn't really matter. We're not doing this to scale. I'm just trying to show you how this works. So um, what I'm going to do here is, first of all, I'm going to leave it like this for now. And what I would do, so I know that I'm gonna duplicate this just because I need another cube, and it's much easier to just have this and just press Shift D to duplicate it. I bring it over here, make sure I have it duplicated, and then press right click, and it'll go back. And now I can move it out. But so I know my bearing holes are 8 millimeters in diameter. So what I'm going to do is just make this 8 millimeters. 8. And there we go. So now we know this is going to be basically our axle for our rollers. But I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller because it's got to be able to get through. So it's going to be 7.5 millimeters. If we had it 8 millimeters, it wouldn't be able to go through the bearing. But we do want it to be 8 millimeters first. That might not make sense. The reason we want it to be 8 millimeters first is because we have to use this to make the hole for the roller, for the axle to go through. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press S and then Z, and that's just size on the Z axis, and I'm just going to stretch it out so it will go all the way through this. So we've got that there. And then from here it's really easy. We just select the roller, and we're going to go to modifier properties. So we go to the modifier, and we click on it, and we add a Boolean modifier. Click Boolean. And what we want is difference, because we want to take the difference of this out of this. So what it will basically do is make a hole in this. So we make sure difference is checked, and then here we just use the eyedrop tool and come in and select this right here. And then now once it's there, we click apply, and boom. Once we move this, there will be a hole there. And there it is. Now we will take this and we will make it 7.5 millimeters. 7.5. 7.5. Right? So now it'll fit in there easier. And what we can do here is press 7 on our keyboard, our number pad, and we can see that there's just a little bit of space there that we can get that through. And it might fit through and it might not. It just depends on how the printer does. So we may end up having to make some adjustments later. But for now, that's probably pretty good. So we've got that, like that. And that's it for that. But, we did some other things too, right? So we had the bearing. So let's go ahead and make a bearing. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this again, Shift D. And I believe the bearings are, I'd have to look it up, but I think they're 7 millimeters thick, and then 24 millimeters in diameter. Something like that. It's around there. But you can see that what made our hole smaller, but that's okay. We can just go through here, put that in there like that. It's all ready to go, so we just add a modifier, Boolean, difference, that, apply, and there we go. Now we've got the right size hole. Okay, so we've got that. Now what we're going to do is just bring this down here into our roller. And we needed to go in a little bit further than the size of it. And there's obviously going to be tolerances as well. So we're going to press SZ and just make it ever so slightly bigger. Or you could use this as well, the size. I like to do it this way, unless I'm being really precise, and I'm not being really precise here. And we're just going to go down, basically almost as far as it'll go. We want to make sure there's a little bit peeking out there so that the hole is made. And then we just click that again and hit Boolean, difference, click on our mock bearing, and that should put our, there it is. There's where our bearing is going to go in. And then we'll go ahead and do the other side now. So I'm just going to take this, select this, and press RX, and then 180 to flip it over 180 degrees. I'll do it again, RX 180, flip, RX 180. Just flipping it on the x-axis right here. And we're going to do the same thing again. So, because obviously we want bearings on both sides. That looks good. Just a little bit further down there. And we'll do the same thing. We're going to do Boolean, difference, apply, and there we go. We're good. All right. I'll go ahead and bring this back to size, which was, I think it was 7. I think it's 7. I'm not quite sure, but and I'm going to duplicate it and just get them out of the way for now. Okay, so that's not exactly what the roller looked like though, right? We had some minor differences. And one of those differences was we had a little lip here on each end to help keep it on the track. So what we can do here is we're going to select this. We're going to go to edit mode. And I'm going to use this tool here, which is the loop cut. And I'm going to actually click off so that's not selected. But I'm going to choose loop cut here. And you can see that what it will do is bring this circle all the way around this cylinder. And when I click left click, it'll be there. And if I hold left click, I can move it up and down. So I'm going to move it up to here. Really pretty close, right to there. And I'm going to make another one. I'm going to do the same thing. Bring it down close to the bottom. That looks about the same. And if I want it, so I can get a front view too, or a side view, but if I press 1 on the keypad, number pad, we can see it perfectly exactly where it's at. And okay, but that's not all we're going to do. We can't just leave it like that, because what that will do is that will create a just a slope that goes down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another one close to that, to each one. And that means the middle one will basically be our sort of like our fulcrum, or our base of where all this stuff is going to be sized from. So I'm going to change my cursor back to the regular cursor. And as you can see here, what I want to do is I want to take all of these and shrink them down, but not on the z-axis, only on the x and y-axis. So what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to press 1 on the number pad to get a straight on view. And then I'm going to change the view to wireframe. And you can see here. But then up here, what we are going to be selecting here is vertices. Well, we don't want that. We're going to use faces. And if you use wireframe and faces, and then if you press B, this gives you basically a rubber band selection tool. And any face you select, so if I do this, I won't select anything. You've got to select the dot in the middle of the face. So if we do that, all we select are those faces right there, as you can see, and they're all selected. If we do this without the wireframe, for instance, if we do this, we will only select, we can select anywhere on the face, but it will only select faces that we can see. We could do that, we could do this a little bit, and you can see it won't select anything. That's why if you want to select something all the way through, you can just use the wireframe to do it. Boom. Now we've got everything selected and we can see. And now what I'm going to do is I am just going to size this down just a little bit. So I'm going to press S, but we don't want to move it on the Z axis. So we only want the X and Y axis to be scaled. So I'm going to press S, and then I'm going to press Shift Z. And what that will do is exclude the Z axis from our resizing. And as you can see, it's not moving on the Z axis, just the X and Y. So we're going to bring this down just a little bit. There you go. Now we have our basic shape of the roller. I'm going to do it just a little bit more. And if we decide that we want these sides to be a little bit steeper, we can just go press SZ and do that. And this is all, it's all pretty easy. I think anyone can do it as long as, like I'm used to it. So it's like old hat to me, but once you get used to it, it's pretty easy and anyone can do it. So, and I also have a little bit of basically a little bit of slope here to make it easier to get the bearing in. So I'm just going to do that same thing I did down there here. So I'm going to do this and just bring this up. And I'm going to do it over here too, bring it up. And you can see they're not connected, but they will be. So what I'm going to do here is, you can see they're not connected. So I'm going to, well, I'm in edit mode, but I'm going to go now to vertex mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this knife tool, because if I just connect these, this won't, it won't separate this face here. It will just be a line going through the faces. So what I want to do is I want to take the knife tool. First of all, I want to deselect everything. I'm going to take the knife tool and go from this vertex to this one. Click and then press enter. And now we've got it. And then the other side I believe is the same, yeah. So now you notice I'm turning the vertex that I'm focused on isn't really where my turn angle is. You can fix that by just pressing period on the number pad, and now that's our focus, our focal point, and now we can turn it and we're right there. So anyway, so deselect that. Take our knife tool and go from this vertex to this one, press enter, and we got it. Now what I'm going to do, because we've got this weird angle, it's not everything is flat and straight, I'm going to go to our line tool, or make it lines, and I'm going to press Alt or Option and left click on it, and it will select all the lines together. And now what I'm going to do in order to straighten them out is press size Z 0. And there you go. Now they're all basically in a straight line. Well, they are all straight across on the z-axis. If we were doing, say this line, if I wanted that to be straight, I would do y, or yeah, y, because the green is y. So if this was like crooked on the y-axis, I could just press SY0 and it would straighten it. So that's what we did here with Z. We'll do it again. Let's go back. Command Z, or I think it's, what is it? Alt Z, Control Z, I guess. Control Z or Command Z on Mac. We'll redo this. I think this will go back about 20 some odd steps. So let's do it again. So I'm going to press Alt or Option and left click, and it selects all of the connections to it with a line. And I'm just going to press S, Z, so size, Z, and then 0. Boom. That's it. And it's a little bit low, so I'm going to raise it up just a tad. And then now that we have that, that's basically our point of, our, I don't know how to say it, our fulcrum point, our base point, basically. Okay, so you see how these got selected when I don't want those selected, so I'm just going to hold Shift and left click on those to unselect them. I can do the same thing if I want to select. So if I want to keep these selected and select these, I can just press Shift and click, Shift, click, left click. But I don't want those, so I'm going to deselect them. Okay, so again, we don't want to move this on the z-axis. We just want to resize this circle on the X and Y. So I'm just going to press S and then Shift Z. And there we go. Now we're just moving it like that. And that's that. And I should have, well, I'll show you that later. But anyway, so that's how I did that. That's how these were made, basically. That's exactly how these were made. So as you can see, we'll take this quote unquote bearing and put it in there. And that's the way it will be in our model. Just like that. And we have this coming through like that. Now what I should have done, what I was about ready to say is, what I should have done is when I added this cylinder, I should have first made it smoother by adding more vertices. But I didn't. I wasn't paying attention. So, but that's what I should have done, and now you can see it'll be a lot smoother and rounder. But it was just to show you how to do this. But yeah, you'd want to make it smoother for rolling purposes. But it's the same general idea as far as doing what I just did goes. But yeah, you for sure would want to make this smoother. Same with all of them, actually. And sometimes I forget to do that, and I have to go back and remake them. But okay, so that would be our roller. That's how it's done. Okay, so gear. I'm just going to select all of this stuff, except for the base, and just move it out of the way. That's a little far. Where'd I go? Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, so Shift makes you move up and down, left and right. Shift and middle button. Middle button by itself lets you turn, and middle button rolling is in and out. Okay, gear. So to make a gear, you want to make sure we have the extra objects. So we'll go to Mesh and Gears, and It's going to make gear. And here's where we can decide on how many teeth we want. And I want to zoom in a little bit. I want to press period on the number pad. And let's say we want 10 teeth. So there's 10 teeth and the radius. Just keep it, whatever we want it. Decide that when we do it. And then for the base, I'll bring that all the way in. We'll close it later. And then we have the the dedendum and the addendum, which is the teeth basically. And we can shape them how we want. The pressure angle is that, and for our purposes, we wanted it to be very wide at the top because it needs to grab onto those metal rods and turn them, and then it'll slide up and down these as it goes. But we need it to make sure it grabs on first, so we don't want something like, say, this, because it wouldn't hold very well. So we needed it something like that. So let's just say that's good. So close that. And what I did here is I just go to edit mode, deselect everything. I'm on line here, so that's what our edge is what they're really called. But so I'm just going to go to edge here, and I'm just going to I'm going to go to the vertex. So I've got all the vertices selected here. I'm going to press M, and then I'm going to connect them at the center. And there we go. Now we have them connected. I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to press Option or Alt and left click, M, and at center. There we go. And now we've got a completely solid gear. And what I did here was, let's see, how did my gears look? I'm trying to remember. I think I just added some things to make them like so they weren't so square, and gave them a little bit of some things to make them to make it a little stronger. So I think maybe I'm trying to recall, but one thing you can do. Well, let's look at it from the edit mode and see what we have here. So we have this. So if we bring this end down, go here to this. If we bring this end right here down, this will make this right here will act as our base, and it will basically give us a slope. So we can do that, things like that, which is I think what I did. And just go up like that. But I wouldn't do that with just that. I do it all at once. So we'll undo. So undo all of that. And what I would do is just hold shift and select all of these edges. Oops. And then I would generally press 1 on my number pad. That's the bottom part, but that's okay. And then I would just have a look here how I want it and just slope it up. And that looks okay. So then we'll go to the next one, the top part, and we'll do the same thing. And again, this is just to make it so that we don't have a lot of 90-degree angles, because theoretically that makes them weaker. And I'm just going to do the same thing here now. I'm just going to bring these down a little bit. So we've got that. And there we have it. And then we would when we decided, well, that's really small. I didn't make it any bigger. Oh, we can make it bigger. When we decided what we wanted to do, uh, we would just, um, so for instance, if the way I decided to do it was I used, let's see, I used a big axle wheel that would basically a drive shaft that would that had one end that was flattened. That way it would actually turn inside there. So I take this. So this is still in the center, and this is in the center. So let's say I would just increase the size of this a little bit, and then we'll increase Z, and then S. Bring it up there a little bit, and make sure it's centered. I know it's centered, but so we have that. And what I would do here is, so we add the. I'm going to add a cube. Don't want anything selected, because if you have something selected and you add something, it'll be part of that object. So make sure nothing is selected, and add a cube. And what I'm going to do is just resize this cube. And make sure the Z is big enough. And I am going to, and make sure Y there is big enough. All right. And all I'm going to do is just cut that piece off of our cylinder. So I'm just going to modify our Boolean difference, select the cube, and there we go. Now we can get rid of that cube. And now we have this where it needs to be, and we can just put our, let's have a look here. Let's look at the size. Let's even up the sizes a little bit. So I'm gonna make this 3, this 4, and this 7, just because. And that way we can go back when we're done. Or not go back, but shoot, I shouldn't have moved that. Oops. Okay, so we still have it centered here. That's not gonna be good, because okay, I did something wrong that I shouldn't have done. I resized it after I had already cut it off, and that's going to screw up the positioning. So I'm going to go ahead and change the size of this first. So 4, 3, no, 4, 4, and then 7. And what I'm going to do when I'm done here is just make them, well, you'll see. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this again. We're going to cut that off, apply, and we're going to move this, and then we are going to do our Boolean through the gear. Apply. So we've got that through there. So that's there like that. And now we are going to resize this just a little bit smaller, so to make sure that it will fit through. SZ. Oh shit, I see. Just resize everything. Just S. And that looks fine. It's probably a little too small, but if it is, we can make it bigger. Press number set pad 7 to look at it from the top. I'm gonna go ahead and make it just a little bit bigger. That should be good. I'm gonna go Y just a little bit more. There. I think that would be fine. Because the tolerances are not really reliable. You can't rely on tolerances very much with these printers. So, and that is basically what you how you make these. Let me do one quick thing to show you the other Boolean functions, which is one of the let's make the spring thing. So let's see. Well, I'm going to add a cube, bring it over here. I'm going to look at it from the top. Press Notepad 7, and I'm going to expand it on the x-axis. Y a little bit. And Z looks okay. Actually, it's probably a little bit big. No, the other stuff just isn't big enough. 2 millimeters is very small when you're printing on the 3D printer, so you need to take that into consideration. 2 millimeters would be too small for any functional part. We'd want it more like 4 or 5. Do it like that. I'll make this 18. And let's make this 12. Make that 10. Make this 20. Okay, that looks fine. It's still a little. I'll make this 4. That looks better. Okay, so for something like this, so how I basically did this was, I'm just going to keep it this shape for now. I'm not going to go get all intricate here, but so what I needed to do was I needed to make it sort of strong and make it so that the spring would come down from this, and this would hold fast to the side. So what I do here is I'm going to add, I don't want to do this. I'm going to add, first of all, I want to add another cube. So bring this cube over and bring it up, because this is going to be where it attaches to the body on each side. So I'm going to bring this cube up here, and I'm just going to resize it. I'm going to bring it up to here, and I want to press 3 to see it from a side view. And I'm just going to bring it over. I try to get it as close as possible, but I'm not super worried about it if it's like a fraction of a millimeter off. And then since I've got this already in place, I'm not going to resize it by that way. I'm just going to press edit mode, go to face, and I'm just going to select this face and just move it down. I'm going to select this face and move it up some. And that's basically what you do. And then I want this object and this object to be together. Now you could do something here. You could select both objects and click join, but that doesn't work nearly as well as using a Boolean. So I'm just going to select this, and I'm going to go to Boolean, and I'm going to do union this time. So I click union, and I click on this cube, and I click apply, and our other cube is still there, but there's one attached to it now. And this could be useful if you need to use this again, but I don't need it anymore, so I'm going to delete it. So just press delete. And so now we have one object that's like that. And I need to add a cylinder. So I just go to cylinder here. I'm going to rotate it on the x-axis 90 degrees. And bring it over here. Bring it up, and I'm going to resize it as big as I can because this needs to be strong. Got stuff in our way. Let's go 1, and if I press 9, it'll go the opposite side. So 1 shows the front view, and then from here, if I press 9, it will show the back view. 3 shows the left side. If I press 9 from here, it shows the right side, or the opposite side. Anyway, so we've got that. That would be a little bit too big, so I'll just go to edit mode, faces, take this, and I'll move it out back some. And what I'm going to do now is, since I need that little tip sticking out, I'm just going to duplicate this, bring it out, and I'm just going to scale it down. And I don't remember what the size was for my springs for the center hole, but it doesn't matter because I'm just showing you how to do it. But you would want to get the actual size. So say they were 2 millimeters, the hole in it was 2 millimeters, then we would use 2 millimeters. And then I would just do the same thing. So we go to modifier, Boolean, union. We would add this, apply, delete it. That's part of this now. And we'll do the same thing with this one. The modifier, Boolean, union, apply, and we've got it. That's it. And this is obviously not anywhere close to the scale of what I had of my other thing, but so we go to edit mode here, and I'm going to select these faces and make them a little bit wider. 7 to show the top view. I'm going to press SX and just scale these out a little bit. And that would give us room for our bolts. So we know that our bolts are, we're going to add a cylinder. We know that our bolts are 3 millimeters. So we want our holes to be about 3.5 millimeters. So let's just make this 3.5. And it would just go here, wherever we wanted them. Like that. I'll just duplicate this so I can see where it is compared to the other one, but I have to go down a little bit to see it. Oh, can't. Oh, that's why. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. Now I should be able to see them. There we go. And we'll just move this over. Looks pretty good. Okay. And then I'm just going to Boolean those with difference. Apply. I'm going to do this one. So I'm just going to Boolean difference. Apply. There's our big holes, and now we're going to make holes for the screws. So we're going to make them even bigger. We'll make them 6. This is for the sink, the countersink for the screws, for the bolts. And they're going to hit that, but I'm not going to concern myself with it right now. Again, this is just to show you. So we would do Boolean here, difference, apply, and then Boolean here, difference, apply, and get rid of these. There we go. Now we have our countersinks for the bolts and all that, and there would be our thing to hold the spring in. And that is basically how we go about making this stuff. So let's go. All right, so how do I test my parts? Here's what I do. So I've got this right here. This is basically my drive shaft from the motor to here. And this is the original. So this is the one I've been using to adjust. So what I will do is just duplicate it like that, bring it over here. And in order to save time, I don't need to measure everything. All I need to measure is a little piece of it. So I'm going to take this big block here, and I'm just going to select this, and I'm going to Boolean all that stuff off of it. So I just have a little piece, apply, and now I have this. So what I can do is take that little piece, and this is after I've adjusted some of this. So I've decreased the size of this just a tad so that it would fit through this. And so I would take this and I will export it as an STL. Export STL, and I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. But and I misspelled. It's supposed to be drive bar, not barred. He's not going around singing, destroying enemies with his songs. But drive bar test, and I would export it as selection only. Cancel. But anyway, so I'd have it out, and then I would open up Cura is what I use. So I would open up Cura, maybe. Come on. Come on. Okay, so I'd open up Cura and open the file, robot models, drive bar test. Got it here, and I'm going to rotate it so that it's on the flat part. Just like that. And then for testing, I have the layers sort of high, sort of in the middle, 3. I could go up to 4, but I want to make sure it's at least decent. And then the infill is pretty low. I think it's, I normally have 14, but 20 is okay. And speed 45, and I just have your general PLA settings. I like to keep my lines vertical and horizontal, so I use this instead of the diagonal. Does need a little support underneath here, so I just keep support on for this. It's not a big deal. I could add my own support with this, the custom supports. It's a plugin, but just a regular support will work fine. So just slice it and then save it to disk, put it on my SD card, and print it out. I'll show you that right now. Okay, so this video has gotten extremely long. So this is printing out the full-sized bar, and down here in the corner on the right here is the test that I printed out, and that's the camera that's mounted to my printer. It's in very slow motion because it just takes a picture for every layer that it does, so it's really fast. So I slowed it down 25%. Anyway, that will be it for this video. I know it's already really long. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope you keep watching this series. It's about to get really exciting because we're going to be printing stuff out and fitting things together and testing things, and it's going to get really fun. If you didn't know how to use Blender, hopefully you got some useful information and you can make stuff on your own. If not, these will be available when I get them done properly. In any case, thank you very much for watching. Take care, like and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Thanks.